This is TB Talks and BS Walks. Join the conversation or the BS. Here are the masterminds behind the microphone, Tyler and Brian.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to TB Talks and BS Walks. As you might have noticed, we've been out of action for about a month. Life happens, and I had a death in the family. Brian's wife has been down and out with an injury, so life gets in the way. We apologize for our absence, but nonetheless, we're back. Episode 19. We have several things to cover today as we try to get back into the swing of this thing. But first of all, the most important thing, Brian, how you been holding up, man?
Oh, well, been trying to keep busy with my wife's sprained ankle, been helping her around the house and trying to get my video editing software up so I can throw everything that we've done and everything I've done over the past 2 or 3 months, trying to get that all caught up and done, and that's been fun.
So this must have been a pretty severe sprain. Can you explain to us how that happened? I know that I got a text from you that said you were sitting in the ER with your wife, and that was all that I got. So how did it all happen?
Well, she had come to pick up some clothes to do some laundry. We live in a trailer, so we don't have any washer or dryer with us right now. And on her way out, she fell down the stairs and landed on her foot wrong, so we ended up going to the ER, and we sat there for about 6 hours. So they finally got to view her and get an x-ray and all that fun stuff. And they said they didn't see anything initially wrong, but hairline fractures are a little difficult to pick up the first time, so they told her she had to stay off her feet for about 3 or 4 weeks. And said it was a severe sprain and a tendon tear, so she's pretty much laid up right now. She still tries to get around the house, she still has to do some of the things that you have to do to exist, so makes it a little difficult. And she fell again recently, so we're, concerned that it might have, retore it or something, so we're trying to keep an eye on it. But she's doing a lot better than
I know
she
you
was.
took some time. I know you took some time off work,
Yep.
to tend to her.
Yep.
So are you back in the swing of things work-wise?
Yeah, it's about to get even more so. Two of our employees quit, so we're going to be bumping up to 6-day weeks. So I'm going to be busy.
Well, that's always nice.
Yep.
Yeah, that's always nice.
Good.
I have been out of town myself. I was in Tulsa for 2 weeks, and then I just got back from Oklahoma City today, and I was covering routes for people that were terminated. And I'm a support guy at my job, so my job primarily is if somebody goes on vacation, any open routes, it's my job to cover.
Yep.
So, and I'm okay with that. The thing that upsets me is when I have to go do this, spend weeks away from home because somebody got fired for stealing.
Yeah.
And I just can't get past why that people think that they can steal and get away with it. Your past will come back to haunt you.
Or why you do it in the first place. Like, you're being paid.
Exactly.
So what's the need to steal?
Exactly.
Like, what exactly is in these crane machines that's worth the well, I don't know, worth the temptation, worth the possible consequences? Like, what is in the, are you doing like the crane machines that have like the CD players and the movies and all that, or are you doing the older crane machines that have the stuffed animals? Or you cover all of them? We
do. Yeah, we cover everything. We cover the plush cranes. We cover high value, which is your iPods and video games, movies, things like that. And then we cover your standard video, like your big buck hunters and your Fast and Furious drifts, and your classic video games. So we cover all of that.
Yeah.
But the issue is, it's all in the collection. When and I won't go too into detail about it.
Right. Don't want to give away too much.
I don't want to put the company on. No, I don't want to put the company on blast. I mean, there's no secrets or anything like that. It's just, but whenever you collect a machine has a meter, and you check the meter every time you collect it, and then you look at the price point for the game. So is it 25 cents to play? Is it 50 cents? Is it $1? Those are our primary 3 price points. 25 cents for your smaller, like beanbag plushes, 50-cent plays for your mid-range stuff, and then $1 play for the big toy. So you take your meter when you are in front of the machine to collect it, and then you look at the previous meter from when it was last collected, and then you divide by whatever the price point is. If it's 25-cent plays, you divide by 4, etc., etc. And then that gives you the total of how much money should be in that machine. So then you have to go through and you count all the coin, and then you count the bills. And then those two totals should equal the
difference
amount of money that you came up with. Right.
Yeah.
However, if it's over or short, you have to figure out why. Could be things like a coin jam, and it's not taking any more money, but the meter's clicked over, things of that nature. So primarily what happens when people tend to try to steal money from the company is anytime there's an overage in one of those machines, they just don't document it, and they just, right, exactly. And so that's what, and they may get away with that for a month. First few times that they do that, it's pretty easy to get away with, only because, you can chalk up anything to a machine being over, coin jam, something not working right. So I mean, you can write anything down on your log, and first couple of times they're not going to think anything about it, because that stuff happens. Anytime you're dealing with electronics, they have a mind of their own, and things happen.
Yeah.
But, the more that this continues to happen, it starts raising red flags, and they start auditing your deposits. And so it will all come out in the wash eventually.
Yep.
We even had a guy got terminated who will remain nameless, but he got terminated. He would do it at the bank. When he would go to the bank, anytime there was an overage, he wouldn't take it directly out of the machine. He would go ahead and document everything. Well, then if there was an overage, the bank would just give him the difference personally and just hand it to him, and he'd pocket it. So he was doing it at the bank. And I mean, the bank's not going to know any different. The bank does what you tell them. So we had that happen. One guy that we lost during his LP interview, which is loss prevention, I overheard some of the conversation. They do it all over the phone because our corporate office is in Colorado.
Yeah.
So obviously we're in Missouri. So they do the LP interview over the phone, and I mean, they had documentation. They had him on video at Walmart. They had obviously all of his logs from his deposits. I mean, they had all that stuff, and this had accumulated over time. And so they put 2 and 2 together and realized that, something's wrong. This is not just standard machine defects. They were one machine was $300 short.
Whoa!
And so when you're $300 short, obviously there's something wrong.
Obviously.
$10, $12, something like that. They don't think too much about, because, like I said, that happens.
Yeah.
But so I overheard him in the LP interview, and they asked him. They said, we have you on video. We know that you did it. We just want to know why. And his response was, well, I'm going through a divorce, and I needed money for a deposit on an apartment. And her response was, well, that's the reason that you get a paycheck. This is how this works.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I needed it that day. I got kicked out. I needed it that day, and that was the only option that I had. So he just took $300 out of the machine and went and paid his deposit. So now, in turn, he has to pay the company back for that money, and he was terminated. So he lost the job and has to pay. So, my friends, your past will find you out.
Yep.
So I've been down covering those open routes, and it's just kind of a pain because I have to do it for that reason. It's not because somebody was on vacation.
Or sick, or family emergency.
Correct.
Oh, man.
Family emergency, speaking of, I lost my grandfather, 2 weeks ago? I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was Good Friday. So,
Kind
the
of
Friday
ironic.
before Easter, yep. We lost him, and he had Alzheimer's. He battled Alzheimer's for 4 to 5 years, was when it really got bad. But the onsets of dementia came, a couple years prior to that, which is kind of what I wanted to cover on the show today. Just a little bit about it. Alzheimer's is a confusing, afflicting disease. And I don't know if any of you know someone, or you may have someone in your family that suffers from Alzheimer's or has suffered from it. And it is a very, very complex thing to deal with. If any of you have suffered from Alzheimer's or know anybody that is Alzheimer's, complex, confusing disease that it is. It started with my grandpa, his ability to play cards. My grandparents were avid card players, and they would get together one night a week with their friends, and they would play cards. And they played the same card game for probably 20 years. Taught me how to play. It's called Pinochle. If you've never played it, you should learn. It's a fantastic game. And so it started, he would forget how to play. It would just kind of escape his memory. And so my grandma would have to remind him, this is how you play. And at first he realized that he was having memory problems, and it would upset him because he knew, I should know how to do this, and I am forgetting how, and so it would upset him. Obviously, as it developed from dementia into full onset Alzheimer's, he lost knowledge of anything. And towards the end of his life, he went through a spurt to where he suddenly miraculously got better. And my parents cared for him for 13 months. My grandma died February 12th of last year. And after she passed is when he really started going downhill. So my mom moved him into their house, and with the help of my wife, they tended to him for the last 13 months. And my wife would shower him, feed him, things like that. And my grandpa was one of those people that didn't know a stranger. He knew everybody, never had a bad word to say about anybody, and was a very Christian man. And that translated to fits of rage and outbreaks. I remember there were several times where he reared back like he was going to hit my wife, and then I would have to intervene and calm him down, and that just wasn't my grandpa. And so a lot of people ask me after he died, I'm sorry for your loss, I know you're grieving, and I really didn't. Most of my grieving had already been done because, from a physical standpoint, I mean, he had a physical presence here.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously that will be missed, but mentally, I lost my grandpa several years ago.
Yeah.
And so we did a little bit of research into Alzheimer's, and the final stage, 9 times out of 10, will just hit like overnight. And the final stage is when they're bedridden, they no longer can eat, they forget how to eat, they forget how to swallow, they forget how to walk. My grandpa was struggling with walking and just getting around, but he still knew how to eat, and he could still talk. And then it was instant. Like, one evening, he just shut down. Couldn't talk, forgot how to eat, wouldn't drink, and that's how he lived out, the last week or so of his life. And it's it's just heartbreaking to see that. Because, when you think of somebody that never had a bad word to say about anybody, and then they can't take care of themselves. And God bless my wife. She was an absolute miracle for our family. She's a CNA. She's obviously been in the medical field for 12 years. I mean, ever since I've known her. Yeah. And so she played a critical role in taking care of him. And it's just a very confusing thing. And we've all tried to wrap our minds around it as to how the disease works and how it affects your brain and the chemicals in your brain, with the imbalances and all of those things. And so I just kind of wanted to talk about it. It's a very, very confusing thing. And I feel for anybody that has to go through that. I told my wife, if I ever get to that point, just take me out and shoot me. I'm not going to know it anyways. You know what I mean? I mean, and obviously everything about my grandfather's passing was a positive because he had no quality of life here.
Yeah.
So, it's just a very complex thing. If anybody has any stories that they would like to share, if you know somebody that has suffered from Alzheimer's, drop it in our comments. I'd even be willing to bring you on the show and talk to you about it. Because I know it seems that there's a common denominator in all of these cases, and although they may differ, essentially in the end they're all the same. It's just the way that it affects everybody, and I don't know, it's very, very confusing to me. But I won't bring the show down any longer. I just kind of wanted to cover that, and maybe that will kind of help explain to our listeners too the reason that both of us have been out of action for some time.
And sorry for your loss. I know it's a rough one.
I appreciate that, but it always bothers me when people say that. And I know that that's the respectful, polite thing to say because you don't really know what to say to somebody when they lose a loved one. And there's nothing, obviously, that we can say to make the situation any better.
Mm-hmm.
But, when someone says, I'm sorry for your loss, two things come to mind for me. First one is, you're not nearly as sorry as I am. And secondly, are you really sorry? Especially to people that I don't know on a personal level.
Yeah.
That I saw online at my grandpa's visitation. I mean, I could count it. Every person that came by. Sorry for your loss. Sorry for your loss. And that just always bothered me. I don't know why, but that phrase always bothered me. And then the one that really bothers me is when they say, well, I know that your grandpa's looking down on you right now, and he'd be very proud of the way that things have turned out, the man you've become. And although I appreciate the sentiment,
mm-hmm.
I can't find any scripture that says that that's true.
Yeah.
If you're a believer, what does the Bible say? The Bible says that there will be no sorrow in heaven. So I know my grandpa's in heaven. I have no doubt about that. He made preparation for that when he was 16. But if there's truly no sorrow in heaven, why on earth would he be looking down here at this terrible, corrupted world that wouldn't be happy?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the sentiment when people say that, but if you can find scripture that says that that's true, feel free to share it with me because I sure can't.
I lost my grandfather not too long ago, but even I'm in the point where I'm like, I hope he's not looking down on me. I make some stupid decisions. Like, how about he just be up there and happy?
Exactly.
Like, he don't have to look on me. That's embarrassing to me.
Exactly. He may wear a toga and play a harp like on Looney Tunes, but I just think that he probably has more important things to do, like worship the living God, than stare at us all the time. You know what I mean? And if you listen to the show and you're not a believer, then you probably don't believe anything that I just said, and that's your right. So